I built my first speaker to be louder. I was playing in a band and the drummer played so loud and the keyboard that I had wouldn't play very loud, and I went to my dad and said, I need a bigger speaker. It's a Fender Bandmaster, it costs $300. He dropped the newspaper. It said, $300? Yeah, but he didn't say no. He said, is it something that we could build? And so that's how I got started building speakers. The thing that I love to see is a product that we made and get to stand back kind of anonymously and watch somebody take a look at it, listen to it, and go, wow. I think that's what really lights my fires, to make products that people enjoy and have fun with. As time went on, I heard people say, you know, Kicker's like a family. I actually didn't set out to do that. I thought it sounded kind of hokey. I thought they were insincere and just saying that. After a few years, I realized, yeah, maybe that's what we've got. And that's the key, is the good people on your team in the band that makes the band really great. Well, I think KICKER is primarily a lifestyle company. That's a little backwards of where I started. I thought we were a technology company and we would make great products, but as time went on, realized that it's about people and helping people to enjoy their life and what they do. And that's what I do too. So share the love a little bit, I guess. The Reese's. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to KICKER UnMasked. It is Tuesday night, the 1st of February. And if you know what Lunar New Year is, Kyung-hee, Kyung-hee. I've got my red envelope right here. My wife is actually from Indonesia, and this is a big deal in her culture, so I get red envelopes, which is really kind of nice. If you don't know what these are for, these come stuffed with cash and prizes, so these are a wonderful thing to receive on Lunar New Year. So we've got, wait, did I say who I was? Yes, Aaron Malin, KICKER Tech Force. You guys have seen me before. I appreciate you being here again. And I want to tell you real quick before we get started, if I jump up and run off camera real quick, unannounced, it's because we had Chipotle for dinner, and it was a little extra spicy tonight. And so I got to tell you, I eat a lot of Chipotle because it's great and it's a good value, but tonight was a little extra zesty, so that's why I would hop up and leave just in case.
Tonight we have Ernie here, of course, and JW, Tim, Bill, and we have a very special guest who you can't see just yet, but we do have a special guest today. The guest is going to talk about some of the inner workings of KICKER, and if you can catch my hint here, you're going to learn a little bit more about how these things come into being. So Mr. David Justis is a fantastic asset to KICKER, and we're going to get a chance to talk to him. But first, you want to learn about the contest, right? Because we all want to win stuff. And I did see someone said that, what is it, Rigged Tuesday or something? Very funny, like that. Ernie, would you turn on my screen, please, so we can look at the contest? The grand prize tonight is Cush NCs. And I think you probably heard me say this last time I was on, but Mr. Steve Irby and Becky, his wife, they did give the whole company Cush NCs for Christmas a couple years ago. They are amazing. I take them on airplanes with me quite often, and not only do they sound great, but they also turn off screaming individuals around you. So that's a fantastic byproduct of that NC technology. You also got a KICKER koozie, of course, and a t-shirt, limited edition UnMasked t-shirt, which if I'm not mistaken, that's the most current, is that right, Tim? That's the most current shirt? I know that Sandy did order a bunch of new promo gear. If you'd like to get some KICKER promo gear, go to kicker.com, check out the gear section. There's a bunch of new shirts on there, adult shirts as well as t-shirts and kids stuff, and even some knives. Please don't hurt yourself. True story about that. We passed out knives at a training a couple of years ago, and someone managed to slice his finger bad enough to go to the hospital after the training, so that's fantastic. Second place, Tabor 2 wireless headphones. Tabor 2, also nice over-the-ear headphones, very comfortable, fantastic sound quality. Of course, you get a koozie and a t-shirt as well. And third place, EB400 wireless earbuds. EB400s go in the ears. They are, I think, IP66, if I'm not mistaken, which basically means they can get wet. They can take a shower with you, but don't go swimming with them because, of course, Bluetooth doesn't go through water anyway, so they're not going to work underwater no matter what. Of course, you also get that koozie, which is waterproof. And then, of course, the UnMasked t-shirt, also not waterproof. So there are 5 ways to enter. You can see that most of you guys have been here before, so you know how to enter these things. And the drawing goes till 8:30 tonight. At 8:30, we will shut down the drawing and announce the winner shortly thereafter. Speaking of giveaways, if you guys tuned in a couple weeks ago, we had this big box giveaway. And John and Ken actually built these enclosures for this giveaway. And so we've got those set up. You probably can't see them. They're sitting over here to my right. And we're going to give away all 3 of these enclosures. And they are preloaded with KICKER subs. I did ask John and Ken if they were going to sign them for you, but they were too modest for that. So they're unsigned, but they were hand-built by John and Ken. Fantastic. The first prize, of course, is the bandpass enclosure. Has got a comp R woofer in it. And then second prize is the sealed enclosure. Third prize is the Comp R ported enclosure. So those are fantastic prizes to win. And let's see, we've got, somewhere this tells us, 65,000 entries. So your chances of winning are, well, it depends how many times you enter, of course, but if you entered 60,000 times, you're probably gonna win. Wouldn't that be funny if you didn't? Really, don't play the lottery. But there are 6 days left to enter that contest. So please check that out. It's at kicker.com/giveaway, and you can enter to win one of those 3 subwoofer enclosures. Oh, yeah, I've got a note here. Apparently it's the Build-A-Bear workshop where these subwoofers were built. That is not true. It is not Build-A-Bear. Actually, I did go to Build-A-Bear, and I built a Hello Kitty doll. And that's how I proposed to my wife. Now, hold on a second. I know, that's just weird, right? So this Hello Kitty doll actually spoke. When my wife squeezed the hand of the Hello Kitty doll, it asked her if we could get married. And it was fantastic. So I have a special place in my heart for Build-A-Bear. But moving right along, KICKER events. Let's talk about some of the upcoming events, fun things, ways to engage with KICKER. Obviously tonight we've got Mr. David Justis with us. But we also have a Base Wars at UAF. That is Friday. That's, today's Tuesday, so that's Friday, this coming Friday. And then Arena Cross. If you haven't watched any Arena Cross, we had one here in Guthrie, which is just about 45 minutes from here. I think it was 2 weekends ago now. And what an amazing experience. Motorcycles, jumping, flying, lifting, just the energy of the crowd, of course the noise, and you get to smell that 2-stroke fuel. Woo! Powerful stuff. Ernie, what's 2-stroke smell like? Heaven, right? Smells like heaven?
Well, I'm thinking more that 110 race fuel smells better, but all race fuel smells good.
Okay, so according to Ernie, all racing fuel smells good. But if you didn't get to watch it live, CBS Sports is rebroadcasting the entire series. So just check out CBS Sports and you can watch the Arena Cross on CBS Sports. So those are the upcoming events. I think maybe there's one more Base Wars. We like to talk about Base Wars at Twisted Audio Creations in Kansas City. It's about a 4-hour drive from here. Of course, we are expecting an ice storm starting late tonight, so we won't be driving out to Kansas City this weekend. But so those are the things that are going on. So please check those out. And I think at this point, let's remind you to like and subscribe. So we do not, as you probably know, we do not monetize this experience, the Unmasked experience. And so the way for us to get greater exposure is to have you, our loving audience, to like and subscribe on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and wherever else you can find Kicker. Please like us and subscribe to us, and that'll help to increase our reach to more people that enjoy car stereo. So with that being said, we are going to bring Mr. David Justis on screen. David, please come on in here. Get your chair nice and comfortable. This is Mr. David Justis. Now, before I let David say anything, I got to tell you that David and I did a road trip. This was just as the pandemic was starting in March of 2020, right? Is that right? It was 2020.
Possibly.
And we did a road trip. We drove here from Stillwater up to Lawrence, Kansas. And the whole purpose of the road trip was we wanted to visit the school where David was educated in all these things that he does at mechanical engineering, at industrial design. And we visited with his professor, and his professor had actually invited us, and he had set up this great event with his students where his students were pitching their ideas, their design ideas, to us. And so it was a fantastic experience for me. I've never seen anything like that before. And of course, David being a professional in this area, he got to go through the students and their process. And we actually were able to help the students with some of their presentations and their product designs and ideas. And then we actually were able to use some of that stuff. I don't know how exactly, because that's David's department. But that was a great experience. And that's how David and I really bonded. And then actually, before that, we also did a presentation together on that Pachakacha. I learned how to say it properly. The Pachakacha. If you've never heard of Pachakacha, it's a presentation style. Some people call it Pechakucha. But it is 20 slides of PowerPoint.
Slides, I think. No, maybe it's 20.
20. It's 20 slides and 20 seconds to present each slide. So imagine you've got 20 slides and you have to describe to your audience what that slide is about, what the image is, or whatever it is on the slide. You've got 20 seconds, and then automatically the next slide pops up. So David and I did this together, and he did an amazing job in front of this audience, and the audience just loved it. So David is not only is he a great designer, but he's also a very good presenter. So I think I've talked enough. Tell us, David, who are you? What do you do here at Kicker?
Well, as Aaron said, my name is David Justis. I'm the head of industrial design here at Kicker. I'm an industrial designer. I was educated to be an industrial designer. I've been doing it for 13 and a half, almost 14 years now.
Here at Kicker?
Here at Kicker.
Wow.
Moved here straight from Lawrence. So industrial design is something I've always been very passionate about, but also something I just enjoy. It's I get to think about the end consumer and think about what's kind of trending and try to think about that, and then try to winnow that into some product design. So that's pretty much what I do. And then there's some odds and end things that I do.
Oh yeah, we're going to get much deeper into that.
But
So to understand correctly, you walk through the world on a daily basis seeing things, and everything you see gives you more information about design and what something could be that you could create.
hopefully.
So you might see an interesting lamp fixture in a hotel lobby and say, oh my gosh, that's interesting. That could be transformed into something else that Kicker might use.
No, there's a lot of inspiration based design, and there's a lot of things that kind of trigger your mind to think of things differently, and I think that's one of the keys of industrial design is to try to come at a problem or something that we all know how how it can be solved, but to kind of come at it from a different angle, whether it's just appearance or whether it's how something functions or like different user scenarios. So,
how often in your normal life do you interface with a product and you just think, that is a terrible design? Who did this?
I think that happens more often. Usually I try to avoid those products. So it gets one shot. Well, it gets more than one shot. It probably gets two shots. But if it's something that drives me up a wall, then I will stop using it completely. So.
Can you tell us a product or something?
I was trying to think. I know there was a Bluetooth module that I tried to put in my old car that didn't have Bluetooth, and I think after about one shot, I decided I needed to buy another Bluetooth receiver. It was just like it went through the aux cord, but it did not work well, and it took about 10 minutes to actually get started. So I was at work before I actually, had my Bluetooth connect. So
just bad design, throw it out the window and buy a new one.
And that there's a lot of good design. There's a lot of bad design. There's a lot of design that's just kind of. It's debatable.
So speaking of bad designs, I've got a personal story about bad design. So my team and I, pre-pandemic, we travel the world. So we stay in a lot of hotels. And every once in a while, I'll check into a hotel and I'll hop into the shower and I cannot figure out how to make the water go from down here to up here. There is just no switch, no knob, no dial, nothing. There's no way to make the water come up here from the shower head. I just think, who designed this stupid thing? Now, yeah, it's 2 a.m, but I'm not hungover. I can't work the darn shower. Bad design.
When I think that's one of those things that ends up being a bad design, but there was a designer that went, hey, I bet if we, do it this way, that someone's going to be like, that's the only way I see it. That sounds fantastic. But, and that's kind of the trick with industrial design is that you're trying to design for a lot of different people, and that's a lot of different people with a lot of different opinions and a lot of different ways that they view the world. And so I think one of the keys of industrial design is to take is to kind of look to those professionals around you, look to those people around you for input, but it's also filtering through that, because someone might like the way this looks or the way this works, and yet the person right next to them will hate the way this looks or the way this works, and they like something completely different. And so how do you appease both of those people?
Yes.
And also how do you not polarize, them with your design and say, well, these people really, really just hate that, and these people kind of like it. So it's a tricky thing, but I like the challenge. I think it's.
I know that you go into a lot of meetings where you are showing your designs to I don't want to say committee, but that's really what it is. And so you might have 10 or 12 designs up there, and this committee is telling you, love it, hate it, love it, hate it. And so you're getting criticized by a committee of 12 guys or something. So, I mean, how do you handle that?
Well, I think that's a big part of it is understanding, like, it's not necessarily criticizing me, and I can't internalize that. It's a lot of times it's just, and it's criticizing the design, which could be bad. Like I'm not saying that they're all good. They're definitely not. But it's just something that I think as any industrial designer knows, that you're going to have people that don't like what you do, but you can't take that as them not liking you, or like it's one of those weird things. It's like you just roll with the punches, and so if someone be like, I hate that, and be like, well, I'll do it different next time then, or I'll do it this way because it's a better design. But that's a different story. But you were talking about the design team, and that's one of the things I really like about the way we do it at KICKER. We have a design team, and we pull in like Tim, for example, from back in the install bay. We pull in Steve Irby, obviously, and he is in all the design team meetings where we're making choices. We have mechanical engineers who I work closest with, who are also usually presenting at the same time.
Sure.
We have sales, we have, marketing, but we pull in all these different points of view so that we could potentially kind of find that sweet spot for a product, or at least find a direction that is heading towards that spot.
So I know a lot of your team is watching tonight, so you may catch guff for this tomorrow.
Probably.
But have you ever thrown in a design that you know is terrible just to take a temperature check of the audience?
Listen, I learned that lesson very early, which is if you're not ready for a design to move forward in the process, then don't put it in front of anyone, because what you think might be this horrible design or a design that you don't even think is great, and you just really just don't have any desire to see move forward, sometimes that design can move forward. And so that just happens. So I like to, and it is hard to say also that I don't know if I can say I really like all the designs that I present, because it's more about whether or not I think that design is a smart direction to head, or a stronger design, as opposed to if I went with liking, it would be, I don't think we get anywhere in a design team. It sometimes happens.
Sometimes we don't. I know. Ken Bundy, who you all know from
Ken's in there.
UnMasked, Ken goes into those meetings. And Ken, one of the things I love about Ken is that he can turn off the filter and be comfortable with that. And so if the whole room says love it, and Ken says, I hate that, and this is why I hate this, blah, 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 and he'll just lay it out there. Even with Mr. Irby there, he'll just say, this is what I don't like about it, and there we are. So
I'm pretty sure Ken doesn't have a filter, for the record.
He does. He's married, so he's got a filter.
I haven't seen it. No, but I do think that's something that Mr. Irby really appreciates is he doesn't want a bunch of yes men saying that's, or yes people
yes,
trying to say, oh yeah, that's exactly what you said, Steve, that's exactly what we want. He wants the people he puts in place and the people we have in place are there to express differing opinions.
Yes.
Not just all agree with that. And I think that's something that we have to continually, work for, but it's also something that I think Steve really appreciates.
Yeah, and Steve, he has the final say, of course, but he really does take the opinions of the people in the room seriously.
Oh, most definitely.
So that's fantastic. I do have a couple of shout outs. Robert Van Who, 40 Hertz? Yes, I am the 40 Hertz guy. And we had an earthquake here, I think it was yesterday, and it was well below 40 Hertz, and I definitely felt it. And it was not a subwoofer, but it was absolutely below 40 Hertz, and it was fantastic.
I think it was a 4.6, if I remember correctly.
4.6?
From Medford,
yeah,
somewhere.
just about an hour from here, maybe 2 hours from here.
It was decent.
But so my office is on the second floor, and the whole thing was just swaying like this, and it was freaky. And we were on a Zoom, actually, and people in different locations were all freaking out within seconds of each other on the Zoom because we all felt it. So that was fun. Need some kicker frisbees for my dog. Do we have frisbees? Kicker frisbees?
That I'm not sure.
Do we have frisbees on kicker.com? No? Okay, no frisbees. I like the idea, though. That sounds fun.
Oh, and hey, on the giveaway, you mentioned that we have the EB400s.
Yes.
They're IP67, actually, so you can swim with them. Whether or not the Bluetooth works in the water is questionable. But I heard that earlier, and that's kind of part of my job as well, is kind of those details of products and figuring them out. But it made me, I was like, wait a minute. But yeah, they're IP67.
So it's the 300s that are 6.5.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or 6.6?
6.6, I believe.
Okay.
They're sweat proof, but the EB400s are IP67 and waterproof.
It's actually really interesting how the IP is done. We pay for the testing so that you can use the IP6 whatever logo. And what that is the imperviousness to water, but also dust. And so the first number is dust, dirt. The second number is water. So the higher the number, the more resistant it is. Now, I'm not going to say perfect, because of course nothing is going to be perfect. At some point you actually get to a crush depth, where how far down in the ocean can you go before the thing gets squished. And we don't really need to do that, because if you're at that depth with your EB400s, you've got other things to worry about. So
and I would say, like, IP67, for example, it has to be submerged for up to 3 feet or 3 meters,
3 meters,
for
yeah.
30 minutes. But then as soon as you get to like an IPX8, then you're dealing with a different amount of time. So they start, You just have to clarify or classify what, is it, 9 meters? Is it, et cetera, et cetera. But IP67 is pretty much anything you'll do in a pool.
10 or 12 years ago, we had a waterproof line of marine amplifiers, and they were fantastic amplifiers, and they were waterproof. The problem was nobody bought them because they were so expensive to manufacture. The price was pretty high, and so we made a great amplifier that people couldn't afford. So we learned our lesson. So
there's a lot that goes into waterproofing something, as I'm sure most of the people watching know.
Yeah, it takes a lot. We do have a good question here about an L5. Do you remember the L5?
I do.
Yeah, L5. That was a great subwoofer.
I think I had a set of 12s, a pair of 12s in the back of my car.
L5s? Mm-hmm. Fantastic.
I think they were samples, so
Yeah.
I might not have paid for them.
Yes.
But they were in there for a while, testing them out.
So the tinsel lead's broken, and how can I fix it? I'm not going to say you can fix it. There's probably some guys out there that can fix it, but I think the L5 is the Nessie leads that's woven into, if I'm not mistaken, it's woven into the spider. So if it broke, I'm not sure how you're going to fix that. There might be someone out there that could do a recone for you, but we do not do that here. Now, I will tell you that if you contact customer service, they may have some other options to help you with. So go to kicker.com and go to contact us, or I don't have the phone number in front of me, but you can call customer service, and they might also have some ideas for you, but that's the best I can do for you. But thank you for asking that question, R-Dub.
I like the Baseaholic Productions comment. It's so true.
Crazy thing. Oh, yes. Yes, thank you, Baseaholic. You cannot please everybody all the time. Anyone who's married, you'll know you're never going to please your wife all the time. Don't go there.
But we try.
We do try.
But, it is what you're kind of striving for, but it's impossible to get there. So you have to find kind of a happy medium, like I said, a sweet spot where you're just not making everyone angry.
Yes.
Or, so.
Yeah, and we all know of some products in the market, Honda, that are pretty average looking. So a lot of people will buy them because they're not offensive. They're not Ferraris, they're not Lamborghinis, but they blend into the neighborhood. So a lot of people buy Hondas because of that, and they're kind of known. Honda's kind of known for that. Why don't you comment on Honda actually as a professional designer?
I've had one.
Yeah.
I think every company has strong cars, or not strong cars, but strong designs and weak designs in areas where they can improve. So I couldn't possibly blanket an opinion, but see, and that's one of those tricky things because your opinion might be based on your personal experience with certain things of like a Honda car or any car for that matter, but that can completely sour your experience. Mm-hmm. Therefore, lumping one car brand as something that you dislike in general. But they've made, I know Honda, for example, has made many strides in racing technology and whatnot. And so
airplanes.
it's there's it's kind of one of those things that and it's something that I think as an industrial designer I do focus on, but I really like to really focus on, which is the user experience, because a bad user experience can sour you for an entire brand.
Absolutely.
But a good user experience can really endear you to that brand or to that product. So for any bad experiences out there, that was probably someone else that designed it.
Well, this is a good point actually. You mentioned that one bad experience can sour somebody on a whole product. Just today, I was handling an email request from someone in the United Kingdom, and they said that we have one of your KICKER Marine KMF subwoofers, and we've got it in this 1.88 cubic foot enclosure, and we've got a bridged amplifier, one of our 6-channel Marine amplifiers, powering it, and it just doesn't sound great. And I said, so you're using the KMF? They said, yes. I said, well, that's a free air subwoofer. That is designed for no enclosure. You use it with a baffle. In a boat, a lot of installs in boats, you don't actually even have an enclosure. You just use a cargo space. And you just cut a hole in it, and you drop that woofer in there. And then when you close that bench seat, Now you've got that enclosure that's the whole airspace. So the suspension on that woofer is tightened up considerably when compared to a traditional box woofer or even ported type woofer. And so the performance wasn't what he expected, and I said, well, this is why. Now, had he never contacted us, he just thought, well, Kicker doesn't make subwoofers that perform, we would have had probably never talked to him before or talked to him since then. So your point is perfect, that we have to get that customer excited and engaged every time with our product.
Oh yeah, and you know, it's one of those things. It's a very hard thing to make a product intuitive, or especially I would say in car audio is very difficult because you know, most installers and most of us here have a certain way of how things should be.
Yes.
And so it's difficult to try to kind of change that or to try to make something easier to use, because we know how it works and how we're supposed to you know, put things together. So A plus B equals C. And so when you throw in like a D or, you know, some random letter, you're getting a different kind of reaction in the end. And so it's tricky because you want something to be intuitive so that someone doesn't have to really think through. And you also don't want to, I'd say, dumb something down to an extent that like that an installer goes, okay, these guys are just jerks. You know, like, I knew exactly what I was doing. I didn't need any of that. You know, so it's a tricky, it's a tightrope act for sure. Yeah.
To your point, in the last couple of years, we have moved to putting a CIC, customer information card, in our packaging, and now our owner's manuals, instruction manuals, are online. And of course, the instruction manuals are 40 pages in some cases. And a lot of it's because there's so many different languages in which they're printed. But it costs a lot of money to print all those. So one way to make a product more price competitive, give you a better value, is to not print all those manuals, but just the customer information card. So now you have the balance. How much do we tell the customer in this one little 4x6 piece of paper? How much do you tell them, and how much do you say, okay, if you've got to go beyond this, please use the QR code and go to the actual instruction manual? That has to be that balancing act, because if it's too simple, there's not enough information, Kicker doesn't care about me, I can't install this by myself. But if you put too much there, then it's just this cluttered mass of uselessness.
And the best way to find that out, and pretty much any design decision, is to ask the installers, to ask ask the consumer and the end consumer specifically, like, that's going to be installing this. If an installer is only installing it, then what we include in that, or I say not only, majority of installers are, then there's probably a different set of a different amount of information that we provide them. If it's a, you know, your everyday consumer that's just buying it off the shelf and trying to figure it out, we have to provide the most information for those those people as well. So.
Christopher Austin has a great question. He says, why do CXA amps do not come with fuses? So this is one of those things, if you are not a seasoned installer, you might wonder, well, fuse, what is it? Why do I need it? If I need it, why didn't it come with it? You might have a lot of questions. As a seasoned installer, you don't even read the owner's manual, you just put it in because you know what you're doing already. But so several years ago, we moved away from putting fuses in the amplifiers. And one of the reasons is real estate. The fuse and all of its components take up space on the amplifier. And as a designer, you can tell me if this is true or not. If you have to put fuses on the amplifier, you've got less real estate for all the other stuff you got to put on there.
Oh yeah, but you know, it's interesting that you bring this one up, because I was one of the feedback loop's really important for any product, and I was up with customer service guys, or actually the tech guys.
Tech support
guys talking to them, and they had mentioned this specific thing about having you know, some fuses on on the end of the amplifier.
Yes.
And for me, that kind of information is essential, because I'm like, I need to know that it's wanted or desired, and then we can explore that avenue and see if that takes us to where we want to get.
Yeah. Well, and since we're talking about fusing real quick, most everybody watching this already knows, but if an amplifier does not have an internal fuse, you must fuse that amplifier even though it doesn't come with one. And you always want to fuse the amplifier at the battery end. Now, if you've got multiple amplifiers, then you need to have a fused distribution block or some way of fusing each individual amplifier. So it's important to understand fusing, that it must be done properly. And of course, all of our owner's manuals have it nicely laid out how to handle the fusing. And if you have any doubts at all, please contact our customer service guys, or excuse me, the tech support guys. They can help you with fusing. So thanks for that question. Oh, this is a great question, QB8. Oh wait, did you, oh sorry, you popped up. Where can I find the fuse rating for each amp? Okay, so if you go to the instruction manual, it will tell you that. And again, the CIC will take you to our website where the manuals are. If you don't have the customer information card, just go to kicker.com and you can look at any owner's manual from any product all the way back to the 1980s. You'll be able to find that, and that'll tell you what fusing you need. In addition, the Kicker U app, I think Ken Bundy talked about this quite a bit a couple of shows ago. The Kicker U app, if you put in the length of the wire that you're using, the gauge of the wire, and the amplifier power ratings, it will tell you what fusing you need for that system. So there's multiple different ways to figure out what fuses you need. So thank you for that question, Christopher. That's great. Now this question directly relates to David. How did the design of the QB8 come about? This is a great story, and I know you didn't have complete hands on it, but Aaron Surratt, whom I think you guys have met Aaron Surratt.
I was gonna name drop Aaron. So
oh yeah, he's
totally
Aaron Surratt's been with Kicker since he was like 12 years old or something.
His whole family, I think, has worked here.
That's true. His mom did work here. She retired. His wife still works here, Stephanie.
Niece,
and
nephew.
Yes, his niece, Alita. Alita does a lot of the motion graphics. She does the thumbnails that you see in our video feed. So yeah, the Surratt family is a big part of Kicker. But so Aaron, it was really Aaron who championed that product, the QB8. And so I don't know how much involvement you had, but can you tell us?
Well, and that's what I love about the way Kicker works, is that we have multiple people with different talents that are kind of working towards these projects. So we all have different aspects. It's not like one person, and there's a few projects where one person might work more than others. And so I know there was a whole timeline there was a whole development process of creating these enclosures and weighting the passive to try to figure out how we can best maximize this enclosure space, and how do we shrink that down. And Aaron had there's one in my cube now, one of his mock-ups that has just a bunch of weight on the passive speaker, and then it went through some different iterations, and kind of there were different aspects of it. There was I know Kyle Ambrose worked, I think, a lot on that as well. The kind of the way it mounts into a car, I'm pretty sure that was Kyle's. If Kyle's in there, he can say yes in the
oh yeah, that's a beautiful
comments.
mount.
But and so there's a lot of different hands that are going into that. Kyle Ambrose is one of our mechanical engineers. And that's the thing, is then it also goes in front of the design team, and there can be directions and different versions that we kind of work through and figure out.
Ernie, can you put up my screen? I want to show the QB8. There's probably a few guys that haven't seen a QB8 or don't know what we're talking about. And so, okay, there it is. So the QB8 has one active L7Q 8-inch woofer and then a passive radiator on the other side. It's essentially the cone of an L7 8 with weight added. As David said, Aaron Surratt added a lot of weight to it because the enclosure is so small, it required a ton of pressure and force in order to move that to get the really low output. Now, I have one of these in my closet at home. I go through a lot of different subwoofer enclosures in my vehicles, but this is one that is so special, I want to have it forever. So it's in my closet waiting for its next vehicle.
I have one in my car currently and have had it for the last 2-3 years.
Yeah, it's a fantastic subwoofer. Actually, my boss, Bart Deal, he has one of these in his home theater system. He set it up in his home, and he's got a QSC professional amplifier on it. So great product. Okay, so let's talk about some of the designs. Ernie, you've got some design assets. Let's pop up the first one and let David talk about it a bit.
So so sometimes I don't remember what the name of this was, but it was I'm gonna blank on it. I don't know why I put it in there if I'm not gonna remember the name of it. But this is kind of some of the stuff that we have to work through. Is, you know, we've got this interface that needs to just have kind of a quick design so that we can go ahead and get it into things. So some of it's not really that complicated of a design. It's just looking for more aesthetics. And I had a bunch of different sketches that I went to the design team with, and they kind of honed in on this one, and that became, I took that from the design team and then went and kind of sketched this up, and this was where it ended. And I wish I had a picture of what they actually look like, but that's kind of, this is probably the, just kind of like some of the simple stuff that I've worked on. Like,
how many versions of this existed before this one?
That'd be a good question. I probably had about, I would say 5 to 6 directions that I thought were solid enough to present.
Okay.
And then they actually took part of one and part of another, and this was the culmination and the combination of those two.
Now here's a loaded question for you. How often does form get precedence over function?
That's a delicate, it's a difficult question, but it's also
Yes.
a very delicate balance. You know, when you're looking at form and how it, not just the way it looks, but also the way that all the internals, especially when you're dealing with an amplifier or you're dealing with a subwoofer, you have certain restrictions and size accommodations that have to be made. And so there are certain kind of, I say, not guidelines, but kind of like parameters and limits that you need to work within. And so I would say that form typically follows function. I believe there's a Mies van der Rohe quote somewhere
Yes.
in there. But and so in our world, I think in this world, and then probably in my design language, I typically probably follow functionality more. I would say, I don't know.
So
It's a difficult question.
here's a kind of a funny story that you may or may not know this, but Common, who was a dear friend of mine, used to work here at KICKER, and he was from Bulgaria, and he had a very thick accent, Bulgarian accent. He spoke really good English, but he always sounded like an evil count, like he would talk like this, and it was kind of funny. But anyway, so he was a part of the design team that created the original Warhorse amplifier. And the Warhorse, if you aren't familiar, it's a monster. I think it's 70 pounds or something like that. And just a beast of an amplifier. And one night we were out for a couple of adult beverages and we were talking about this amplifier because he was very proud of it. It's a very, very unique design. Still, no one's ever built anything quite like it. But he said, you know, Aaron, we put fans on it because that's what the market wanted. We didn't actually need fans. The amplifier is so efficient, it would never turn on the fans to cool itself. In addition, he said, I could make it about 25% smaller, but they wanted it to be massive because it was 10,000 watts, $10,000. It was $1 a watt, so it had to be huge. But he said, I didn't have to make it that big. I could have shrunk it down. So in that case, form actually became more than the function, even though the function was phenomenal.
Mm. And I think it's a decision that has to be made about every product. But
Sure.
Ernie, if you want to move on, I don't know what.
Next, Ernie?
Yeah, next slide. So, okay, so going, can you pull up the last image I put on there, which was just the L7, the 44 L7? Keep going.
Oh, you're going ahead.
Yeah, we'll come back. Well, and you can go through these. We'll come back to them, but it's just the single. It's just the single speaker, but that'll get me started, and then we'll come back to these in a minute. It must be no. It's just a line drawing. Is the last one that was put on there. It's on your drive, which might not be actually on there. So never mind.
We should have practiced this.
Basically, if you go back to where we started on the cones, most of the work I do, I tend to do a lot by hand. So I'll do it either on a piece of paper, a lot of times on a piece of paper, sometimes on my iPad I'll sketch, and then I will kind of go and take those concepts and then tighten them up. And so, I mean, a lot of it is just a matter of going through a lot of different variations and trying to figure out what we're feeling, to also at the same time carry through kind of a design language,
yes,
and a brand language that KICKER embodies. And so some of these probably are more in line with what KICKER, like what we think of when we think of KICKER.
Yes.
And some I purposely kind of derail from. And if you look at it, like the bottom center one, the gasket that's on that one was kind of where we started heading for. It's kind of where we ended up for the Q class L7. So it's sometimes it's like just that we didn't have the same cone.
Yeah, the cone's very different.
Yeah, but there's just little things that you'll pull from this sketch and that sketch, and then things come together. There's another set of cones that I think a sketch of cones, Ernie. So sometimes like I'll have a front end view or a front on view, and then they kind of, to flesh them out a little bit more, end up getting into some of these 3/4 views and these perspective views, so that we can kind of see them a little bit more, because my job is also to take something that's two-dimensional and present it to the design team that in a way that they can see it, and
sure,
and not everyone thinks in the same in the same way I do.
Right.
So that's a big challenge, is to try to get it to convey a message enough that someone can understand what it's going to look like.
So when you throw up, say this in a design team meeting, basically the design team helps you sort of narrow down the correct direction to go.
Yeah, and and Kyle or any of our mechanical engineers will be in there, and we all kind of start figuring out which directions we can go, and then there's a sketch of the enclosures, and then usually at the same time as you're starting to work through some of these details, while the mechanical engineers are working on them, they will also start exploring like the enclosures. And if you've seen the L7 enclosure that has the so this was kind of where that had started to an extent. And so as you can see, there's variations, like in the bottom center, or the bottom, you have the 2 ports. We had looked at that, and then as we work through kind of the acoustics and everything, that ends up becoming 1 port, and we had that little logo that was kind of hovering right in the center.
It's cool.
And so there's a lot of steps in between this, but this is kind of where that all starts, is kind of this, in the top right. And so here's where you kind of end up. And part of my job is also taking the models that my mechanical engineers come up with, and kind of rendering them up so that we can see kind of some different material choices. Some CMF is color material. I forgot what I'm blanking, of course. I'm on camera, so. But yeah.
We got a. I'm sorry to interrupt you. We got a couple of good questions here. Would KICKER be considered a SQ brand? I love this question. A speaker's job, a subwoofer's job, an amplifier's job is to reproduce the music the way the artist intended it. So that is the sort of the starting point. Now, if you go to a restaurant and you order your steak medium, and it comes out and it's medium, and it's got just enough pink in it to make it delicious, but it's not bleeding all over the plate, and you take a bite of it and you say, you know what, there's not enough salt and pepper on this. So then you start adding salt and pepper to it. So you took what the chef gave you and said, you know what, it's good, but I want to make it a little bit better by adding salt and pepper to it. So a speaker is kind of like that. When you're tuning a car, the first thing you do is you tune the car to be balanced, to be neutral. And then you tune it for the way you want to listen to it. So are we an SQ brand? Yes. Are we an SPL brand? Yes, we have a range of products that can be used in virtually any application, but what it comes down to is how you're tuning the system. You can take an amazing speaker, put it in the wrong enclosure with the wrong gain setting on the amp, the wrong crossover setting, the wrong subsonic filter setting, maybe 40 hertz or so, and you can make that subwoofer sound terrible. Or you can take a good subwoofer that's inexpensive, like our KICKER Comp series, put it in the right enclosure with a good amp, properly tuned, and it'll sound amazing. So yes, we're all of the above, but it comes down to how you tune your system. So I think that's enough of the soapbox there. We had another good question about the QB8. Is it considered a bass tube? Funny, the QB8 led to our Tb8 and 10. The QB8 is such a great product. It's a pretty high price point, we get it. It requires a lot of amplifier power, but we wanted to take that technology and filter it down to a more accessible product. So that's why the Tb8 and 10 came along. So they are QB8 style, but in a more affordable package.
And that's also going into the material choice. I mean, like the QB8's an extruded aluminum, housing, where the Tb8 is a injection molded plastic housing, or
yes.
ABS, I believe. And
ABS,
so,
yeah.
And that comes with its own challenges, I think, because of the amount of movement of just the material and all that stuff. It has to be tuned differently. It has to be kind of approached in a different way. And I think our mechanical engineers are just fantastic with kind of figuring out the best way to do that.
Yes.
But
so another question here, Bassaholic. Form is so often just as or more important than function, especially for making things seem premium. Oh, this is a great point. Please talk about the design and making it seem premium.
Yeah, and I agree with that. It's a slippery slope, I believe, to like how do you define premium? How do you say, well, and a lot of times that ends up going into, well, it's using these materials and these, so form is, important, but the materials, like you look at, some of the most expensive vehicles and stuff, they have custom parts, and form is very, very important. But they're also all is going into making that look expensive and premium is also the materials, and so there is it's a bit of a balancing act and a trade-off sometimes to say, hey, we want this to be affordable for our consumer, and we want this to still look like a premium product and be a premium product. And so we have different trade-offs that we have to kind of give, like, we sacrifice, I don't say we sacrifice anything, but like we choose one direction over another because choosing, to make it out of billet aluminum is going to cost, a small fortune. And we can't do that as much as that would make that a premium product. But it is very important. And I'm a fine arts major. And so form has always been very important to me. But it is definitely a balancing act to see which one kind of takes over. And I think it's different on each product.
For sure, for sure. Hey, Ernie, could you throw up some more designs from David? Oh,
there's the HP41BT. That was some of the original idea behind taking what was before the Cush, or the Tabor now. Is it the Tabor? Yeah, because it was the Cush Blue, and we had some different variations of this. But this was from the original kind of concept, was putting those controls for the Bluetooth controls and how a person would interact with that. So this was kind of just some hand renderings that I did on the computer to try to represent how we would control the Bluetooth settings on those. So
that's also a fine balancing act, because obviously when you're wearing these things, you can't see any of the controls. So when your hand touches the control, it has to be intuitive as to what it is going to do when you move that or press that or whatever.
And we had some mock-ups to try to figure out how how we do it, how other people kind of where their hands lie, trying to figure out what works best. And we don't know if we always get it right, you know, but we try to get something that makes sense, and that also I know there was a lot of headphones. There's a lot of headphones now that have like cap touch and different almost gestural things, and this was kind of before all that. Not before all of it, but it's one of those things. There's people that like tactile buttons, and
Yes.
Now fortunately with haptic, I think you get a little bit more of that, and kind of the gesture thing has kind of made its way into kind of a mainstream setting. But I think there's still something to be said about tactile buttons, like where you're sure that you're, you know, pressing a button, you're not accidentally pushing it, you know, and you know exactly what it's doing. I get in different discussions, and I would say it's maybe arguments with mechanical engineers and electrical engineers, with, you know, how many buttons do we have on a product like the Bullfrog, or like, do we need the play, pause, and the track forward, track back, and some of these things where you're kind of taking out, you're saying, well, without it, then we're controlling from our phone, and so you have to go through these different scenarios, and so it's a fun thing to kind of explore, because if you think about how many times you actually, you know, use certain features on Bluetooth, and you start figuring out what's kind of important, and then if you look through these scenarios, like what are the situations these are being used in. So it's a fun challenge.
There was a period, I think it was the late 80s, maybe early 90s, when auto manufacturers went through this phase of fewer buttons and more touchscreen controls. And it was infuriating to the consumers back then, because first of all, they were glitchy. So you might hit volume up and actually the volume went down. Or you might start the car and the radio was turned on last night when you were driving home from the bar. Maybe you shouldn't have been driving home from the bar, and it was kind of loud. And so now you're tapping down, 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 down. Well, it took 45 seconds for the volume control to boot up. So you're tapping and nothing's happening. So people like to have a knob. I just want to grab a knob. Even if that knob is a digital rotary encoder, just give me a knob, man.
Wasn't like a weighted knob. I mean, going back to like the form and the function, where form kind of takes over is when you've got something that's that visceral, that tactile, that you're just, there's an experience with turning a weighted knob, and you know, feeling that encoder just, it's something that I love trying to create those experiences, but how do you do that and still make it, you know, affordable?
There was a Hafler amplifier that had this big volume knob. It was a home amplifier, and when you turned it, it would just go on its own inertia, and then it would slowly stop. And if you tried to grab it before it was done, it would actually have enough torque to move you. It was incredible. But thank you, Tim. We got 10 minutes left in the contest. There's the camera. 10 minutes left on the contest. So if you're going to enter the contest for tonight, please do that right now. It is kicker.com/giveaway. Yeah, kicker.com/giveaway. Go ahead and enter to win those prizes. One of the prizes was designed by this gentleman right here, Kush NC.
Yep.
We've got a few more good questions here. Let me jump into a couple of questions. Oh, most powerful subwoofer. It's right here. You can't buy it just yet. Someone else, or David Gray. Thank you, David. Someone else asked, Zach, pre-order dates? No pre-orders yet. Thank you for asking. We had a new product update today, actually, and this subwoofer was talked about. And I can tell you it's still coming this year. Today's February. It's still coming this year, Year of the Dragon. It is Year of the Dragon, so that's a good time to release a new subwoofer. But this is the most powerful subwoofer we have ever offered, even though it's not yet available, but it's coming soon.
Are we going to have a fire-breathing option?
Well, if you clip your amplifier, yes, we may have a fire-breathing option. So, okay, so what are we looking at here?
Well, as some of you who have probably seen, this was kind of some of the original concept for the IQ amplifier. Exploring kind of how the badging works, we had explored at some point the aluminum accents, but also some lighted accents, and we've done a lot of, on the amplifiers, lighting is tricky because it's something that some people like, some people just don't like.
Yes.
And so trying to do it subtly but tastefully and elegant, and we'll go through a lot of different things. We'll mock them up. We had a lot of these SLAs, these SLAs are printed, 3D printed models that, you know, were semi-transparent, trying to diffuse the light.
Oh, yeah.
And so trying to diffuse, you know, LED light is kind of the tricky part of getting the amp to look even, because anyone's seen LEDs, you can get a lot of hot spots,
Yes,
and
yes.
even on the grills, that like the marine stuff that we have, trying to diffuse that. And I think that our engineering team does a great job at trying to get that, well, you know, like as good as we can get it, so that you're not looking at LEDs, you're not looking at these, you're looking at something that's very pleasing to the eye. So
Yes.
an experiential thing. So.
Thank you, Bassaholic. I agree. They're amazing amplifiers. And in the closet where the QB8 is, there's also a couple of these guys.
Under my passenger seat, there's one that's running the QB8.
Everybody in this room has a closet where they store stuff they love from Kicker, but they don't have room in their current ride for that gear. So,
And see, like this is the before the KX or the KM amplifiers. We were taking the what was before the ZX, and so this was going to be, but this happens a lot. We'll be having a project that's kind of running along, and it becomes kind of a different project. It's still the same project, but
Yeah.
it'll either take on a new name, it'll take on a new kind of target at times, because it's doing something that, you know, that works better. So like
Sure.
the door on this opening, you know, you see that on both the KM and the KX amplifiers now. But as you can see, this was done before we even decided on the KX name, and it was still the ZX, pulling from our heritage of the ZX amplifiers.
that drop-down door that covered the preamp controls, was that your idea or somebody else in the building?
I'm assuming it was. So based on the sketch, I would say that it probably started either as a discussion and then became a sketch, but
Yeah.
it was one of those things I had a couple different options. I wish I'd have put them in here, but a couple different options of how we could cover up the controls on these
Yes.
amps. And I think that might have stemmed from a conversation about how a lot of installers were not wanting people to touch the amps after they put them in. So this was like, hey, we could just kind of get in the way of them. Like, they could still do it, but like, we're going to make it a little bit more difficult. And I think some of the KMs now have like screw on.
Yes.
This was magnetic. And,
Yes.
And the idea was this neat little magnetic thing, and it ended up becoming a different thing because the magnetic hole was not, if it didn't work, or if it worked, but it just wasn't
Well, for the
reliable.
Marine, we
Yeah.
wanted to be able to cinch it down so that
there's
seal.
there's a gasket around the
would
whole thing.
seal. Yeah, and you said something really funny because, of course, traveling a lot, talking to a lot of installers, hundreds of times installers will say, "Can you please lock out the gain and the crossover controls and the bass boost? Please make it so that the customer can't screw it up." And you know, that's a great question, and a lot of us wish you could do that. But really what it comes down to is the guy or girl that owns the amp needs to be able to control the amp. So that's why we don't make it so you can lock out the controls. For better or worse, that's the reason. What do we got up here?
This is kind of another example of kind of what I sometimes have to go through, and these are from the old KS crossover, and so we have kind of a size and kind of, you know, the attenuation switch, and kind of how, so some of that's already laid out. So part of this comes into that form that we were talking about, and how do you create something that exemplifies kind of a higher price point. And this is something that you're gonna, you know, most people are gonna
Hide it away.
shove in their door. So
Yes.
like a lot of this is just kind of going through just iteration after iteration of different styles, trying to just put stuff out there. And I just thought that this little sketch compilation exemplified just kind of like these different things, and you can see similarities on the ones that have the Iron Man. I didn't even think about that till now. So that's Iron Man mixed with X-Men, apparently. So, and something about industrial design is that it is very much it is a product of our experiences. So
Yes.
there'll be times that I'll design something and I've got to be careful because there'll be times I see something in another product that I'm like, I really like that.
Yeah.
And I'll design something like, oh, this is a great looking, amplifier or something. And then someone in the design team will go, hey, this company came out with this like 10 years ago. Is this what you were trying to draw? And I'm like, oh. So I've got to be careful, and I have to do my research so that I'm not recreating something, but it is all kind of an amalgamation of different inspiration, different things I've seen, because I'm not creating anything new. I'm combining things I've seen into something
real
new,
life.
hopefully.
Andy's got a great question, but before I jump to that question, I want to make one point about the crossover that you said. The crossover is unloved. It's like a redheaded stepchild, excuse the expression. The crossover is so important to the performance of the speaker, but people really don't understand what it is. They look at it and say, well, what am I going to do with this? So they hide it away. So you may make it look beautiful and totally functional, but then it gets hidden away. But to the average person, they say, well, why do I even need this? Here's the speakers. So you've got this really important component that's going to be hidden. You want it to be pretty, so when they open the box, it looks nice. So you can't spend too much money on it, too. Yeah. Making it beautiful costs money, of course. So that's the balancing act.
Well, that unboxing is an essential part of, I think, any product, and the way the packaging looks, the way... And I fortunately also get to work with some of that at different times, which is like, what is the experience as you're opening this product? What do you how is it packaged? And that, the mechanical engineers, how it's even packaged so that it can be delivered in one piece and not broken. That's
a 67-pound subwoofer.
There's a lot that goes into that, and that's an experience. And if you think about some of the worst things packages you've opened and some of the best.
Oh, yes.
Like that, even if you throw that box away, the way it opened was just something you're like, wow, that just says something about the product, even though it's a box.
The Nest thermostat.
So like, that was, taken,
wow.
I would say taken from the Apple, the whole Apple mentality, that Apple iPhone, the way that box opens, everyone's like, oh, I don't even know how it's doing it.
Yeah.
It's really, to try to recreate that and to try to, there's some expensive packaging out there.
Yes.
It's kind of fun, but the thing that was just pulled up,
I'm sorry. I just want to say it's 8:30, so the contest is closed. So thank you for entering, but it is closed now. Go ahead, that next design you had up there, Ernie?
Yeah, Ernie had that. So this is kind of, so we have a not a co-branding, but a project that we worked on that has just been released recently with Nissan. And so basically this is similar to, it carries a lot of same components of the Bullfrog speakers, but we're trying to put them in a different, I guess not envelope, but a different way so that they could be mounted in the tailgate of different Nissan Frontiers using their Utilitrack, I think is the name of the proprietary name. But and so this speaker was going to mount into the bed of a truck so that speaker is available. So it's a waterproof, it's got to be IP67. I think this one's 6.6, but I could be wrong.
Okay.
And so this was a project that we worked on with Nissan, kind of hand in hand, and it would kind of come back to me, and we'd send it off to them, and they would come back and say, hey, we don't like that. So, and then it would come back, and so the kind of the colored image right here, or the shaded image, was kind of where we leapfrog to the next, if you've got that other one, to what it ended up actually kind of becoming. And this was all, there was a lot of back and forth with this, how the grills are going to be mounted in there, the control. And as you can see, if you are familiar with our Bullfrog speakers, a very similar user interface. So we're still carrying that over. And then there's a handle just like on the Bullfrog. And so there was different directions we changed. This had the original I/O, the interface, I/O interface was on the back, and so now it's on the side. So, but Nissan, I guess, just released it in the last couple months, I believe.
Yeah, it's available for sale on their website.
I think if you can purchase it when you purchase a Frontier or a, and what's interesting, so one of the random things that, I don't know if you can see in the grill, the grill patterning that we were going for originally, and that we kind of still have, it's still got this I don't know what the shape is, but the shape that it has was actually pulled from the Titan grill.
Oh,
and so,
yeah.
So there's different design cues that you kind of try to pull in that make this look not just like a KICKER speaker, but instead like a KICKER Nissan speaker.
Yeah.
Or a Nissan speaker. Like it could work in either arena. The Nissan usually gives away the fact that it's.
Yeah.
But logos can have a tricky effect like that. So.
That's a neat point, because you want to be able to identify it as a Nissan product, but also a KICKER product. So you had to blend the two design languages, for lack of a better term, to get the right balance. So.
And it was really a privilege to work with, the Nissan design team and the people there. It's always fun to kind of collaborate with people.
Sure.
And one of the things I love about my mechanical engineering team and all my design team and all the people here at KICKER is that I can bounce ideas off them.
Yes.
And I can get a lot of creative inspiration and kind of, I'll go back and talk to the guys in the install bay and just get some information, like get their feel on things and just kind of, I try to soak all that in, and then I try to kind of reproduce it if I can in our products and kind of incorporate it in. So
does your brain ever shut off, Dave?
Usually it's a dramatic. It's very, very dramatic. It's at the end of the day, the lights go out, and I'm just out.
Done. Okay.
Unless I dream a lot.
I promised that I was going to bring this up. Andy, one of our best customers. I say customer Andy, we love you. His question is, David, did you have a hand in designing the Solo X?
I had a hand in it, but I cannot take all the credit. So there's a sketch, Ernie. So this was kind of we had the L7, the Q-Class L7 out, and so when we were kind of working with this was just kind of like some of that the conceptual work from the beginning, just going, how do we do this concept, which was kind of presented by, I believe, our acoustic engineer and our mechanical engineer, and I think Kyle has a lot. Kyle Ambrose has a big hand in all this, so I would give him all the credit. But and like our mechanic, but there is some things that you can see, like even in the boots on this, which even though it's all gray, sometimes I'm just trying to get some stuff out there, how far the legs come down, so you can see in the top right image that there's some similarities to the way. Oh my goodness. The way this looks. So like there's similarities and there's things that kind of carry through, but yeah, it's definitely a team effort, and but I wouldn't take probably credit for anything that I've done here, because it's not on me. It's
the team. Sure.
It's definitely 100% the team.
Dieselman's got a question about if we're going to be doing dual 15 loaded enclosures. I don't think we've ever done dual 15 loaded enclosures. Not in my 15 years we haven't, but I won't say never, because the quad box, when Mr. Irby first talked about the quad box, I thought, oh my God, who's going to buy that? It's too big. But holy cow, do we sell a lot of quad boxes. So Dieselman, I don't know. I can't say no, I can't say yes, but thank you for the input. That's solid. And you had a design up there. Oh yes, let's talk about, this is a product we released last year, the Power Bar. And last year it was my most exciting product, even though this was on the same release as the Power Bar was supposed to be. I'm actually more excited about the Power Bar because it gives us a powerful KICKER solution for virtually any environment. So please talk about how that came into being.
Well, and we have some, we kind of had what we wanted to do, and we had some mock-ups, I'm sure Aaron had Aaron Surratt, built some mock-ups, and so we're kind of given an initial layout of how, where we want this to be. And so then it's just a matter of a lot of different conceptual ideas. This was where we kind of ended up to an extent. This had some different mounting options that we had to. There's some random, I don't want to say patents out there that somehow include all sorts of things that you'd never think they include. And so there were some patent issues that we had to kind of work through to figure out like how can we mount this in a way that works. And so this was kind of some of the original concept work, and the utility patent that we had to not work around, but that we were faced with. It was a smart idea, and someone patented it.
Yeah.
And so it's like sometimes you run into that. And so, but I'm really excited about this product specifically, and we've been working on some mounts recently, just trying to figure out different ways that we can. And this is after that's already been released, and so just different things that we kind of still toy around with for different applications. It's really exciting to try to solve those problems.
So SJC Audio Guy is asking, who was the brainchild behind the square subwoofer and what inspired it? Mr. Irby is much better at telling these stories than I am, and this, of course, was before I was here. I do know that the square subwoofer was not just one guy. As David said, it takes a team. It wasn't just one guy. And so when the idea first presented itself to go with a square subwoofer, there already had been square mid-range drivers, but of course a mid-range driver doesn't have to have much excursion, so it's not really a big deal. And when it comes to a square subwoofer, excursion and cone area, that's really the two things that make bass, right? Excursion and cone area. So you got to move a lot. You have to have a lot of excursion. And so the hard part was right here, is the corner. We went through lots and lots of designs. I think it was probably two plus years in making this work. And so then patenting this rib design, this is why other companies, well, some have tried and most have failed to make square subwoofers. This is why most of them fail, because this is the magic. As the speaker is moving in and out, of course the flat edge, that's simple to control. But the corner, it has to have more material at the end of its excursion. But then if you have more material, where do you put that material when you're back at dead center, traveling all the way in again? So that's where the accordion shape comes into play. It is able to move in and out linearly and have fantastic excursion without buckling, bending, tearing, or making terrible noises. So who came up with it? Again, it was a team effort, but it took a lot of development to make it work.
Well, I think that's something I have to, as a designer, get shout out to my. I know I've mentioned them multiple times, but my mechanical engineers and the engineering team in general. It is much easier to design a good product, or to try to create a good product, when you have excellent engineering and guys that I can talk to and figure out why this is happening, or why this is working, or why we had to go with this, and then figure that out, and it's a fantastic solution that actually solves the problem. And I love our open dialogue, but I just have to say, that I have to mention how much I appreciate having good a good R&D department to just help my design along. It's on my design, but to help me design better.
Sure. This is actually a good opportunity to really quick to tout the fact that many of our competitors don't have a David Justis. They don't have an R&D team behind them. Many of our competitors are simply buying off-the-shelf parts, assembling them, putting their logo on them, and selling them. There's nothing wrong with that. You can build a relatively decent product at a really good price, but to get something that is truly unique, truly fantastic, truly high performance, it requires a team of men and women in the engineering department. Drawing, David, we don't have a ton of time left, but would you feel like drawing something? Is that something you'd be comfortable doing, or am I putting you on the spot too much?
Well,
you can say no, it's okay.
I think I'm going to say no tonight. I've been drawing kind of all day, but...
Okay, yeah. That's cool.
But I was wanting to add, there was another question that was up there earlier. On the Robert Van Who question mark. Why no more heatsink fins? And one of the interesting things I think about our amplifiers, and we do have finning on some of them still, and it becomes a matter of efficiency. But that's something that, as a designer, I have to go talk to my mechanical engineers and my electrical guys and figure out if this is an efficient enough amp and how we're going to cool it. So when I go to design a or an amplifier, I have to think through whether we're going to need finning, if this is going to be a cast aluminum chassis, if it's going to be an extruded aluminum chassis, and finning a lot of times really lends itself to an extrusion process, though KICKER has had in the past many cast finned amplifiers, but it is one of those things that and I think it is also a nostalgia thing, because we've seen fins for so long, and then we start making these efficient amplifiers that don't really need that extra cooling. But just like you were saying on the Warhorse, is like that is something that we sometimes do need to put in, because it is part of kind of the identity of an amplifier. So
sure.
But I liked that question, and
that is a great question, because if you look at most of our amplifiers, they're pretty smooth in a lot of aspects, and really it comes down to how efficiently can you cool the amplifier. And if you don't need fins, well, that's less material, which makes you more competitive price point.
Also, it also often decreases the footprint of an amplifier. When you look at our power sports amps and different amps, there's enough sink already that without the finning that it's efficient enough that you can keep it small. Like adding that just starts taking up more space.
Right.
And so that's one of those trade-offs, like I was mentioning earlier, where you have to weigh what is more important to the consumer. And for like a power sports consumer, space is vital. And so you need an amplifier that does a job but also fits in a given space and does its job well there.
On that note, I'm looking at the clock, and we've got some stuff to give away. Bill, are we okay to give away some stuff now?
We are.
We are good? Okay, let's give away some stuff, and you'll have to remind me how I give away stuff, because it comes here. Okay, good. Thanks, Tim. Boy, I'm feeling rusty out here. So let's see who's going to win. Well, we start with third place, right? Third place winner? Ready? Okay, waiting for the crawler. Third place. Third place, Glenn M. from Canada. Canada! It's real winter up in Canada. Glenn, you're third place winner, so you're getting a set of the EB400s, which are IP67.
Yes.
Thank you, David. So congratulations, Glenn. Those will be taken care of by friends at Gemsen. They are KICKER for Canada. So they're going to handle that. So thank you, Glenn M., for joining us tonight and for winning something. So who's number two? Let's put up number two. Derek H. from Tennessee. Derek, you're number two winner. So you get the Tabers, right? The Tabers.
I went to high school in Tennessee, so
Tennessee.
Yay for Tennessee.
Can you do a little Tennessee twang for us?
I don't think I ever developed it.
No, no twang? Okay. So Derek, congratulations. Thanks for coming tonight. Appreciate you being here. All right, who's the grand prize winner? Congratulations, Nick W. from Michigan. Nick also got real winter going on. Nick W., thank you. You have won the noise canceling headphones, so if you've got children at home, feel free to put those on and have a nice night.
Try to listen to those every day at my desk.
That's true, you do, huh?
The entire day.
I saw them charging today when I was in your cube, that's right. So thank you all for the winners. Appreciate you guys being here tonight. And I think we had one more design you wanted to show? Is that?
Possibly, yeah.
There was one more thing. Ernie, is there one more image I think we had selected to talk about or look at tonight?
Sure.
That was an enthusiastic. Oh yes, the Bullfrog.
And this kind of goes into part of sometimes what I have to figure out. And so yeah, the Bullfrog. This was kind of on the early side. We had you could see, if you know our product, this had a grill that went around, but part of my job too is figuring out kind of how that piece or that product is going to go together. And I work with the engineers on this, so sometimes I'll have an idea of kind of how I think that it should go together, and they'll tell me how it actually should go together. And so this was one of the sketches I kind of liked, the way it ended up turning out, but kind of showing how we could potentially put this together. And it's actually not too far off from what it ended up being. So the 3 pieces in the center kind of actually became 2 pieces. The grill separated, and then the handle became just larger. So there's a few things, but this kind of at least gets that ball rolling so that we can figure out how to kind of tackle it and how each piece is going to come off, the injection molded pieces, like whatever we need. So
I travel with a BF100 when I'm allowed to travel, and I use it when we're doing like a PowerPoint presentation. I actually connect it to my laptop via Bluetooth, and we can play the videos and do the sound through the BF100. And it's just a fantastic product. And the 400, I love it. It's a little too big for my carry-on luggage, so that's why I take the 100 with me. But amazing products. And actually, General Motors sells a ton of these on our behalf. So that's a fantastic product for them as well.
Thanks, GM.
We have just a couple of minutes left. And one last question I want to ask you. For guys and girls that are watching tonight that think, hey, David's got a really cool job. I'm curious, how did he get that job?
You can't have it.
Well, maybe not the job here, but how did you get to where you are today to be such a respected member of the Kicker team? I mean, how did you do it?
Well, I actually went to school for industrial design, and really I started at Auburn in Alabama, War Eagle, but then ended up transferring to KU to University of Kansas, so Rock Chalk. But I'm
Such
kind of
enthusiasm.
I was a designer. I was never very good at sports. So that's one thing. Like if you're good at sports, you could probably be good at design. But if you're really good at design, or not really good at design, but if you're good at design, sometimes you just don't have that sports like thing. At least that's how it has been for me. But though I do know a few designers who are adept at sports. But and so it's a 5-year program that I think I turned into 7 to 8.
You just loved it so much.
So yeah, but it was a long process, and I actually left it, went to interior design for a little bit, hoping to do kind of some furniture, and then came back to industrial design because it just lined up so much with the problem solving and creating kind of an experience for consumer that I just really just meant the world to me. So
Yes.
I love seeing someone use a product that I've had a hand in designing, or telling me about, oh, I got this Bullfrog and I really like it, and it's just like I wouldn't say it's like necessarily an ego boost, but it's neat to know that I had part of at least making
Somebody happy.
Yeah, for just a minute, even if it was just like, hey, I really like that. I'm so happy you like that. Thanks for sharing that. It's just one of those things that it's neat to see a product out in the world, especially someone that you don't know. Like your friends will compliment you all the time. Like when you get some random person just coming up saying, "Hey, I really like this," I was like, "Oh, I know who designed it." No. It's just kind of like it's a feel good moment. But it's ever since I figured out what industrial design was, it's what I've always wanted to do.
Excellent. Well, if you are interested in getting into David's field, follow his path, get some schooling, and then apply for a job at Kicker. And maybe you'll get to work with David, or maybe even for David. But that is all the time we have tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for being here. We appreciate your time. We appreciate your enthusiasm, your excitement. And we'll be here again next Tuesday. I don't actually know the topic yet, but we'll make a teaser for it and we'll put it out. So in the next couple of days, you'll know what we're doing next week. Any closing thoughts, David?
No, thank you all for listening to me ramble on about different things. And probably trip over my words. So, but, yeah.
You did great, buddy. You did great.
It was a pleasure to be here. So.
All right. Thank you, guys. Good night.
Thank you.
Kippolicious. Be sure you get that schmedium every Tuesday night. Full tilt boogie. Kippolicious. Good evening, everyone. Twisted medium. Twisted tea. Hippopotamus. Cold beverage. Medium. Midler. Out in BFE. Out in BFE. At the end of the day, good evening, everyone. Tuesday. Full Tilt Boogie.